So 7-Eleven came from Dallas, Texas. It's in southwestern America. Texas is known for cattle ranches, cowboys, country music. But surprisingly, it also came out with 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven is known to be mainly in like urban areas, serving that urban customer just for convenience. You need something quick in a high densely populated area. 7-Eleven's a good place to go. But 7-Eleven has taken on a new form, especially in Asia. Many people think that this new form sort of was created in Japan, and a lot of Asians think that 7-Eleven did come from Japan. It sort of did, but it didn't. I mean, the whole idea of like a convenience store being open 24 hours, I think, sort of came from America. So this is the backstory. 7-Eleven, it first started off like selling ice, I guess, in the 1930s, and then slowly they just expanded. They're selling ice because the refrigerators at that time were not common, and then slowly just the gas stations started to develop and around the country. Then they started like selling chips or drinks, or they just started building and building and creating more franchise stores. And a Japanese businessman happened to be in the area. He's looking for ways to improve his own market. He owned a market, maybe a chain back in Japan, but it's very like traditional style. So he's looking for ways that he could sort of improve upon his market, maybe to like modernize it. And so he saw 7-Eleven, and somehow he got like a meeting with the 7-Eleven people, and they reached an agreement. Okay, you can take 7-Eleven sort of as like a franchise, and you can take it to Japan. So he's looking at the model, the business model of everything and the products, and he noticed, yeah, definitely, there's gonna be some things that we need to change. The first thing that he noticed was like the inventory. 7-Eleven would just order large batches of things, and they would just sit there. And he noticed that like the Japanese customer is maybe different, and there's more density, and so he'd have to like collect more market or consumer data. So he's like, okay, I'll change that. I'll just sort of figure out what they want in Japan. I'll localize it, customize it to their needs, order smaller things, and create like this logistics system to just sort of, I guess, be more quick to what the consumer wants. And he manually would collect the data from the customers. He'd just write down like, okay, this customer came in. He looks like a male in his 40s. He's in this location at this time. He grabbed this rice ball. And then that model worked. It became really successful because they were able to like really give the customer what they wanted, what they needed. They focused more on like quality and what the customer needs and wants. Where the American model was just sort of like, hey, we'll just provide you the bare minimum. And this is just sort of like a second place that you would go if you can't go to like the supermarket. But the Japanese took it on a whole new level. They're always about improving and then expanding more and more services. Eventually, they sort of were raking in more revenue, or they're more successful than their American uh, parent company. And the parent company came back to the Japanese owner, and then he's like, they shared information. They're like, okay, so what are you doing? Can you share that information with us? Then he shared what he was doing, and the Americans sort of reevaluated and adjusted their model to what he was doing, and they improved based upon his suggestions. And because of that, they reached an agreement where they'd split apart, and that's where like the Japanese 7-Eleven sort of took over Asia. Um, so moving on to like Taiwan, because that's where I live, and that's sort of my first exposure to Asian 7-Eleven. Um, Taiwan actually took on 7-Eleven. They let it enter into the market 5 years after Japan did. I think Japan they introduced it in maybe around 1970. So then then Taiwan, maybe a little more than 5 years. Taiwan introduced it in like 1978. Um, I think through Uni president like Tong Yi, and they saw that what was happening in Japan, and someone from that company, Uni President, they I think tried that franchise model and the same thing how Japan did it and brought it into Taiwan. The I read that the first 7-Eleven in Taiwan was in Zhongli, Taoyuan, for some reason, and when they first entered the market, they actually had a really difficult time because many Taiwanese weren't used to the ready-to-eat meals. They would go to the market, they would go home and cook everything, or go to a restaurant. So they did have to like customize it, and they had to like I guess just educate the people and show them how convenient it is, and eventually it took on it took off. Right now, Taiwan has like the most 7-Elevens per capita, the highest density. So what's going on there? What happened? Where did it go from like resistance to like having the highest density? I think they followed that Japanese model. They followed the JIT, just in time inventory. So that like they're giving the customer what they want. They aren't wasting. They're improving, always expanding, adding more services. They have like I-bond system, which you can buy tickets, like train tickets, and they're just always expanding. There's so much to do and see, and um, it's more of just a convenience store. It's like part of the community. Everybody in your community will always end up in the 7-Eleven. It's like a meeting point almost, maybe on purpose or accident. Um, like me, living in Taiwan, I'll go into a 7-Eleven at least once a day. It's a very important part of the culture here. um, yeah, so that's sort of the backstory of 7-Eleven. And yeah, go ahead, leave a comment if you have any questions.